Epiphone Elektar Tube 10. It's a weird combo, this one. You just roll it back so you can see. It's a very weird combo indeed. I think this has got an 8-inch speaker in it. So if we just look at the back, spin it round, there we go. If we look in the back, what you can see there is a 6L6 and 112AX7. It's got an extension speaker socket. It's made in Korea. Not quite sure of the age of this, but it's probably pushing towards 20 years old, I would have thought. So we just look at the top. On there we have gain, volume, treble, bass, middle, treble, middle, bass, the usual thing, and a standby switch on a single-ended amp that's only 10 watts. Strange, but there we go. So this amp doesn't sound very clever. It seems to have low output. So we're going to take a look at it, and we're also going to just have a look at it anyway, because it's a bit of a weird one. So I'm going to take this chassis out of the case and we'll have it on the bench and we'll have a look. Right, so we're just looking in here. You can see we've got a PC board, very small output transformer there. I presume that's the output transformer anyway. Yes, yeah. Oh, is that? Must be. Well, I can't see another one unless it's on the other side. Power transformer, output transformer. Yeah, the blue wire there is the plate on there. So yeah, that's the output transformer. Pretty simple thing inside. Nothing springs to sight. That's obviously wrong with this amp, but it doesn't look like it's ever been modded. That resistor's turned round rather strange. So that should be stood up off the board. Like that's better. I don't quite know what's happened there. So I'm going to plug this in, and we'll get it out the case now, and I'm going to plug this in and do some tests. Right, I've got this chassis out on the bench. The first thing I noticed when I was removing this is the edges of this chassis are like razor blades. Just not been finished. Very sloppy. Really dangerous, that. Really dangerous. I actually had to wrap something around it to pull it out. So that's not great. And I might just go over that with a file, so when the next person comes in here, they don't have to risk cutting themselves on that. Now this amp's got a Jensen speaker in, and it looks like an 8-inch Jensen. It also looks like a fairly modern one, so I'm not sure whether that's the original speaker. I had to take this jack socket out. You can just about see it at the bottom of the camera to get it out as well, but that was no big deal, and that's made it easier now to plug the speaker into it, being out of the case. So what we've got here, we've got a Harmer 12X7. Now I was told by somebody that these are from Watford Valves, these Harmers, but they're actually JJs. So I don't know whether that's true or not, but I presume it is, because the guy that told me is usually pretty reliable with his info. And we've got that we're going to struggle to get back in there now. And then let's have a look at this 6V6 we've got here. Not sure what. Oh, that's a Softec. That one of those with the very slim base on them. So we need to test those as well, just to make sure that they work okay. Just be very careful pressing your thumb on the side of that edge of that chassis there when you're pushing the valve in. because that may go through your finger. Right, so this amp, we don't need to put this amp on the Variac because it runs. We've had it running. It just seems a bit quiet and listless. So we're going to put a meter on it. I'm just going to back the camera out. Right, so we're going to have a test round on this amp, just see if we've got any voltages missing anywhere. It's not the easiest thing to test because of this PC board, but we're going to have a bit of a test round anyway. So I've got 394 volts on that plate resistor, and I've got 307 on the other side. So this amp's got some serious voltage on there, and that red wire there is one of the plates. So that's some serious voltage. So we're not missing any HT volts, are we? One thing I have noticed on this amp, it's got a bit of a hum in the background. You might not be able to hear that with the rain on the roof. And the volumes are all turned down now. We've got a 22 microfarad cap here, which is, I suppose, I mean, on a Fender Champ it's 16, and I would think this is kind of modelled in a fashion towards a Fender Champ. But either that cap is very tired, or there's just not enough filtering on this amp. We've got a couple of 22s down here. You can just see that one protruding over the chassis lip there. One of those is obviously going to be for the preamp stage, and the other one, I would imagine the other one's running the screens, smoothing the screens. But there's a distinct hum there. Now the other thing, of course, with this amp is, this amp's got a 6L6 in it, which it may have in from the factory, I don't know. But I'm just going to go off and have a bit of a look online and make sure that should be a 6L6, because of course we would expect to see a 6V6 in this, but the fact that it says tube 10, maybe that's and the incredibly high plate voltage leads me to believe that that probably is the original tube, the 6L6, because I've got 394 volts coming to this plate resistor, as I've just shown. So that, and obviously we're quite down the line there on the nodes. Let's check that one. Oh, what's going on there? I presume that is a plate resistor. 226. 397. Yeah, 226. So it's actually quite a lot less on one side of that than the other. So I'm not sure why that is without probing further. So let's work our way up. So are these drop-in resistors? What's that? So I've got 424 volts on there. What have I got on the other side of that? 429. And the diodes there, so that red is the center tap there. But I don't think we might be able to get, oh, we have got on there 428 volts then DC, 427, 428 coming out of that. So that would be rather a lot for a 6V6. So I'm guessing that this amp should have a 6L6 in. Interesting. So I think this amp definitely needs a recap. Definitely needs these, at least that one, and I would upgrade that to 47. I think that hum will still be there even if we replace that cap. These type of caps you can use, when they're failing they tend to be bulging on the top, but of course that doesn't mean that it's not failing. We've got two more here. What's that resistor there? 470. Is that a screen resistor? No. Oh, that'll be the bias resistor, of course. So that's the bias resistor. So this amp will be cathode bias. Let's just check that. Yeah, 31 going across there. Because we do need to check the bias on this amp, really. We also need to check that tube, because if it's running really cool, that could be one of the reasons why it doesn't sound very good. And I have got my hand on that at the top, though I don't think I'd want to put it in the middle. And the plate voltage is really high as well, which could be another sign of cool bias. Actually, the easiest way to find out if it is fixed bias, is look and see if the cathode is to ground. But I'm just trying to see on there which is the cathode. Pin 8, I think, is the cathode. Pin 7, pin 8. Pin 8. So that is that one. Yeah, 31. Let's just turn that the other way. Yeah. So that is the cathode, that white wire there. And that is the cathode resistor. Yeah, that's right. So that's the cathode resistor. And that will be the cathode bypass capacitor there. Now, I don't know how good these amps should sound, really. I don't really know anything about these, you know. I've not ever seen one of these before. This is the first one I've laid eyes on. Didn't even know they existed. Yes, I'm just looking now at... So I've got a resistor here which is 1k. We ought to find a schematic for this amp. I've got a resistor there that's 1k. And that looks to me like the cathode resistor on one of the stages, and it is 1.5 volts. And that looks like the cathode bypass capacitor there. I've got some resistors here. That could be grid leak. Well, we know what that one is. A bit jumpy today. That's the input. So that's the grid stopper for the first stage. Then we've got a 22k there. Not sure what that's doing. What's that? 68k. Yeah, so that's the grid stopper there. 68k. Have we got any leakage on these capacitors, I wonder? Can't really get to them because they've covered them in glue. Now, why would you need to put glue on those? I can understand it when the caps are big, but nothing on there. I can't get under there to test it, so I can't really get to test those, which is a bit of a pain. We could check to see if the grids have got any DC on them. Nope. Well, that one won't have, because that's the first stage. It's the second stage. 4, 5, 6, 7. No, so no DC on there. Yes, there doesn't appear to be anything wrong with this amp at a first glance. All the voltages seem to be there. Just seems to lack a bit of output. That could be a number of reasons. Could even be the output transformer, it could be the tubes. But this amp does really need a recap. It is getting noisy, and that won't be helping with its sound either. Right, I'm going to test these tubes and then we'll come back. Right, so I thought I'd check the bias on this before I test this tube. So we've got a 31 volts drop across that 470 ohm resistor, that 5 watt sand resistor. I've got 385 volts plate to cathode. So let's do the maths. So we've got 31 divided by 473, because that's the exact measurement of that resistor. equals 65 milliamps, 65.5. Take away 5% for the screen, that leaves 62 milliamps, and we times that by 385, and that comes out at 23 watts, 23.9. So what's 24 watts? So that 6L6 should be 30 watts. So 30 watts max dissipation. And we've got 23.97, so it's 24 watts. So 30 times 8%. That's it. So that is biased at 80% cathode biased, which is okay. There's no problems with that. So the bias all looks right. You know, I'm not sort of gone in there and it's only like 7 watts or something, and then that would explain why it didn't sound very good. So the biases are good. So all the measurements and everything check out on this amplifier. There's no missing voltages. Everything seems to be there. So why does it sound a bit rubbishy? Right, so I've tested the tubes, and that peg's about 80% emissions on the meter, and this is near enough the same on both sections, on both triodes. So all the voltages appear to be there. This amp appears to be running well. It needs a recap. So apart from the recap, what could be making this amp sound a bit rubbishy? Well, one thing could be that transformer there, because that's a pitiful little transformer, and they're claiming they're getting 10 watts out of this. I wouldn't expect that transformer to be attached to a 6L6, but it is. So interesting. Now, what else is interesting with that transformer? It's a 6K primary. That's about what we'd expect. Just done the maths on that. So that transformer is a 6K primary. So that, yeah. Now, I think what we need to do with this is pop it on the 4x12 and give it a bit of a listen, and just see what it's like, and just see if that speaker is a bit crappy that we've got there. But those Jensen speakers tend to be very good, so unless that speaker's blown or damaged in some shape or form. So that's the next thing we'll ever listen to this amp on the 4x12. Right, I've got this Elektar, this Epiphone Elektar on the 4x12, and I'm afraid it's very disappointing. So that's the full bass, watt bass. It's a very nasally sound, even with the middle down, with the mid fully down. It's got quite an unpleasant distortion, even with the gain really low, almost like there's just no headroom, or there is indeed something wrong with this amp. That sounds dreadful, really dreadful. So is there a problem with this amp, or is it just that transformer is so small, or is the transformer on its way out? So if anybody's got one of these amplifiers, let me know in the comments how this amp sounds. If you know, if you've got one, has it got a lot of bass on it? Does it not have much bass? This one doesn't have any bass on it, but the bass control is working. It goes from little or no bass to absolutely no bass. I think we need to look at a schematic as well for this amp and find out just what coupling capacitors we've got and what sort of tone stack we've got. But yes, it's not great. As soon as you turn the mid up, it just gets that honky sound. And the thing with this, I mean, this is on a 4x12. You know, most things have got pretty good bass on a 4x12. But this amp hasn't. Volume on the gain doesn't come in till about number 2. And it's just bland and has no character. So we need to look into why that is on this amplifier. Is it just you know, a cheap brand and it doesn't sound very good? It could certainly do with another transformer on. That one doesn't sound great to me. So we've been through this amp. We can't find any missing voltages. Everything checks out. It's biased at 80%, cathode biased. The output tube, the preamp tube is fine. Everything is fine on it. So why does it sound horrible? So we're now running out of options. It's either down to the fact that transformer is faulty, or that transformer is just a poor transformer, that output transformer we're talking about, or this amp is just badly designed on top of that transformer, because that transformer to me doesn't seem very good. But you know, we've got no bass. That again, that could be down to the transformer just being cheap and nasty, or you know, have we got, you know, low coupling capacitors in this amp, 2 nanofarad, something like that, and we've got a poor tone stack in it. So I'm going to search around now and see if I can get a schematic for this amp. Right, I've just had a bit of a thought why this amp sounds a bit broken up and distorted when the master volume's down. Is the fact that this master volume here on a single-ended amp, and where it's positioned in the schematic, and it's positioned after the tone stack going into the grid on the output tube. I've got that full up now. And now it's nice and clean. And if we turn this down, yeah, that bit of clip in there. So from what I've read, and I did once put a master volume in a single-ended amp and I got exactly the same symptoms, and when I actually checked up on that, I actually found on some forums that it's not a good idea to put a master volume in a single-ended amp. Having said that, Marshall have probably got away with it. I think that Class 5's got a master volume on, if I remember. Funnily enough, I've got one of those to look at next, which we may be modding. But that is a problem on this amp. But if you turn that all the way up, this amp sounds much better. Still doesn't sound great, but it's an improvement. So that's a design flaw on this amplifier. I'd forgotten about that, and it wasn't until I looked at the schematic and then I remembered. So if you're going to use this amplifier, you really need the master volume up at least halfway. see why you'd want a master volume on an amp like this. It's not exactly got a lot of gain on it. And that very poor distorted sound when that's low is probably enhanced on that smaller speaker as well. So let's have that full up. So that's the first thing that I've found. The tone stack has got a 470 picofarad coupling capacitor for the treble, and then we've got two 22 nanofarads, so they could be up to get the bass up a bit. But I think that transformer's the biggest problem with lack of bass on this amp. So let's have a look at this schematic. Right, so we're looking at this schematic, and you can see here we've got a 68k grid stopper, 3.3k on the first stage, 1k on the second stage. So the resistor that I tested earlier in the video, check was a cathode resistor, was on the second stage. I thought that could be on both stages. It's not. Never be sure with PC board amps if you can't see the traces. 22 microfarad coupling capacitor, and the same on here. Now I've not got a deal of gain on this amp, and obviously the tone stack will reduce some of the gain as well going down the line. The 3.3k here I would think is a little low. I would make that 1.5 or even 1k. We'd get a bit more gain out of this amp. So that's strange for this amp, but maybe, I don't know, maybe they wanted it cleaner. Surely you're better off having the second stage as well, slightly higher than the first. What else we got? Now I can't read what that says there. That says, I thought that said 0.47, but you can't read it very well. So it's C2, so I'm going to have a look in the amp and see if I can see what that is. So going through there, we've got a 120k grid stopper by the looks of it coming into there. So we've got that, and then we've got the gain control there as well. So I'm not sure why we need that, but don't know. I can't say I'm not the best amp designer in the world. Then coming off this second stage here, we've got a 0.1 microfarad before we get into the tone stack, which is also kind of odd why we've got that there. And then in the tone stack we've got the 470 picofarad, and we've got a 22 microfarad and a 22 nanofarad and a 22 nanofarad there. So we've got those two. 250k linear treble pot, bass is 1 meg log, and we've got a 25k mid pot. So all that seems pretty normal. Volume, master volume, and you can see this master volume here is coming out of from the tone stack, and that's going then into the grid there. And what is that? Preamp out. Didn't spot that on the amp. So it looks like we've got a preamp out on this amplifier. We've got, if we look, we've got the 470R cathode resistor, and we've got a 22 microfarad bypass cap. So all pretty standard stuff on there, really. Now there's something interesting that I've just spotted. There's a 47 microfarad cap there. What's that all about? That's, or is that 0.47 microfarad? That's the negative feedback, I think. Yeah, it is. That's negative feedback. Yeah. So there's the 22 microfarad on the first stage. We could make that 47. So we need to know what this coupling capacitor is here. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to post this schematic on community so people can see it. I'm going to convert it to a file and post it. And just see, some of you techs out there who are much better than I am, see what you think and what would you do to mod this amplifier. I know what I would do, and this is what I would do. I would make that 33k. I would make that 1k or 1.5k. The coupling capacitors I'd probably leave, I think. We don't know what this cap is, so we need to check that. I would do away with that 0.1 there, and I would change these to 0.1 or 100 nanofarad and 47 nanofarad in this tone stack to get a bit more bass. Although if the transformer's not going to give it, then that's not really going to make a lot of difference. I would also like to remove this master volume as well. But could we do that? Yeah, because the gain that's in between there. So I would also like to remove that master volume, because when that master volume is at low levels, it's creating a very unpleasant distortion. And that's probably, and I'd up this 22 microfarad first stage coupling cap to 47. So that's what I'd do to this amp. And we need to just see what this is here. But I would put a 22 in there anyway, if that's not already a 22. Or even a 33, something like that there. So I'm going to post this on community. And if some of you techs out there, show me how you do this. Would you do roughly the same as what I'm doing here? Would you remove this master volume because of the problems it's causing? Obviously a transformer upgrade for this amp is probably a good idea as well. So let me know in the comments how you would approach modding this amplifier. Now the other thing I found on this schematic was the date, and look at that. 25th of March 1999. So this amp is quite old. That surprised me. I didn't expect it to be that old. So there we go. So the only thing I've left to do now is I'm just going to go and see what that value of that capacitor is, because it's not very clear on there. The rain is coming down again. So let's get back to this capacitor. Here, C2. C2 is indeed 0.47, 470 nanofarad. Why? Why would you put that there? I don't even begin to understand. And the more you look at the capacitors in this amp, more it leads you to believe that that transformer again is not brilliant, because you know you're going to get a lot more bass response from these capacitors, 0.1, 0.47, than you would from, say, having 10 nanofarad in there or less. So I don't know. So that is 470 nanofarad, 0.47. So I'm going to post this video up now, and then I'm going to post this schematic up on community, so you can go on there and have a look. And I think that's going to do it for this one, and then we'll decide what we're going to do with this amp. I think whatever we do to this amplifier, it's not going to sound wonderful because of the output transformer that it has on it. It's small and it looks a bit cheap. But you all let me know in the comments what you think, and what would you do to mod this amplifier. So that'll do it for this one. So some of you may well know, my mum is quite ill in hospital, and thank you for everyone that's sent their best wishes. What that means is I'm not really doing any big projects at the moment. This is a small amp, and I'm kind of filling in what I can do in the time that I've got. So this one's an evening one because I'm spending most of my time up at the hospital. So yeah, I've just got to battle on, and hopefully we'll get some more projects on the channel in the coming weeks. So thanks for watching, and you all take care, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye bye for now.